Hello, my delicious co-creators. Lilou here in beautiful New York City. And today I have quite a delicious, different type of interview because we're going to speak of energy healing and this energy that is really accessible to all of us, right?
Yeah. The light of the Eternal One energy is it's really beautiful and just brings you into a place of peace and calm. And I'm going to share that with everybody who watches this video.
Yeah, we want to learn. I mean, I really want to learn personally. I can speak for myself to learn how to just bring in the good energy when we need to during the day, or even start our day, so that magic unfolds. Don't we all want to live magic, right? And this is. Tell us first what is your point of view on energy? Because I know you wrote many books on Reiki, and you kind of went all over the place to learn different type of modalities, and you've created some things of your own. Your latest book, and you're writing another one, but your latest one is Energy Healing for Everyone, and we're everyone. So I'm liking this.
Yeah, I mean, I have this idea of something I call the divine rainbow, in that there's these many different bands of energy healing light that are becoming available to humanity at this time. And each one has its own particular flavor energetically, its own particular purpose. So I love Reiki. I love the other energy healing modalities I've studied. But, right now, I'm more focused on this energy I call Light of the Eternal One, which is very simple, very easy to learn, and just brings about this sense of inner peace and calm that can really have a profound effect for those who use it on a continuous basis.
Just on a more general note, it seems like a lot of people right now are healers, are creating their own techniques too. Is that how I feel?
I think a lot of people are. I also know a lot, in the world of Reiki, that there's a lot of Reiki masters who are coming through with their own symbols. I had some symbols come through that were part of some of my books, so I totally understand that process. But yes, there are sort of these different energies that are just appearing, and I really feel like it's about this time of awakening for the planet, that the divine is helping us out by sending these different divine lights that can help us. And again, each one I feel like has its own sort of purpose and function.
Yeah, so it's like a big rainbow of energies. And how do you receive such information? How does it happen?
So for me, it's really been more, I mean, I've studied a lot, certainly. I've studied Reiki traditionally. I've also studied a modality called vortex healing and some other modalities. But for me, it's been more spontaneous. It's just really my consciousness being opened at certain times where I would have these downloads of information. Sometimes I would see these complex mathematical equations and just have this vast sense of eternity in them. It's not that I understood them intellectually, but during that time in my life, I was being very opened up to these different styles and different aspects of what I call the divine rainbow. And again, Light of the Eternal One is just a very simple, easy one to use.
Were you meditating or in nature?
Well, I mean, it really happened over the course of a year. So part of it was after a 12-day energy healing training in Mallorca, Spain. Which
nice spot.
That was beautiful. So that's when one band of light came through that I call Magical Awakening. And then I was also traveling in Asia for a period of time and had some downloads that came to me then that were more about some of my more recent Reiki books. Something I call the Reiki Crystal came through at that point. And then while I was at Omega Institute that same year, I had a download for this energy that I call Light of the Eternal One. So
you're often at Omega, yeah.
Yeah, I work there as well as teach there, so I'm there quite often. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good reference, huh?
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah. So tell us, because it's very interesting for us to learn about your own process, and how you receive that, but also how we can apply this in our own life daily. So I'm very intrigued by the process as well. So you're telling us a little bit. Is there something else that we need to know about the process of receiving downloads and information? Because I feel a lot of us can access this these days, and it seems randomly to happen. Sometimes we kind of put ourselves in position of reception, but nothing comes through. What is your feeling of it, where we're at, and how easy is it to access to all of us?
Yeah, I think certainly I kind of feel like it's if you're ripe, if you're energetically ripe, or whatever for whatever the divine picks you at that point in time to open this energy to come through, then that can happen again for different individuals, and that sort of, I think, is more a sense of grace and sort of almost like outside of our control. But certainly in terms of just receiving a download from another teacher or from somebody, as I'm about to offer shortly, for that, really a person just needs to be open and ready to receive. Know that with the empowerment I'm going to offer, for some people it might make them kind of go into a nonverbal space or a very quiet space for a period of time. So I wouldn't probably do this while operating heavy machinery or driving a car, but it can take a very blissful and just very internal frame of mind when one goes into that space.
How important is it these days to open ourselves up to these energies?
For me, I think it's extremely important. I feel that for me on my own healing journey, it has taken me to places where traditional therapy and that kind of healing work just couldn't quite access. And so for me, it's been just a profound way to heal what was a very disturbing childhood. And not that I want to go totally into that story, but there were a lot of things that, I did the traditional therapy scene for a while, and it was useful in some ways. I was able to get through some things, but then there was this sort of residue that was never quite finished. And it's really when I got into the world of energy healing that I felt like I was totally able to clear and clean that up and feel, very happy in my life now.
And aren't we in a time where it's about us, like shining our inner light, accessing this information, and being able to practice and do that daily?
Yeah, being able to just send light to yourself for your own sort of energetic self-maintenance, but also being able to share it with friends and family, or send it to the community around you, or even just sending it to the planet. I mean, often when I'm teaching people, we're sending energy to either different parts of the world or just to Mother Earth herself, because it's certainly a time where we need this energy.
Do you think she needs it?
I do. I mean, I think the whole planet is sort of in a place of massive change, and that's exciting in a lot of ways. And at the same time, there's a lot of stuff that is concerning. And so really, I think that the whole planet needs a lot of healing. And so for me, this is a light that one can use for self-healing, but also to share with community, friends, family, as well as, the earth.
Would you say that energy contains information?
It certainly can. I mean, often when I'm doing an energy healing on myself, I'll have one of those like aha moments, like a deep understanding about either a situation or something that I need to do. So certainly, and I often hear people who I work with have those same kind of reactions, that they'll receive some energy healing and they'll come to a sudden awareness about some issue in their life that they now understand better and then can move through and beyond.
Can we do this remotely, and how does that work? And why can it work?
Yeah, so again, all time and space is really kind of an illusion anyway. And so you can send this distantly. So again, once I offer the empowerment, I'll show you a very simple technique, which is really just pretty much bringing your hands together and imagining whoever or whatever you're sending this energy to is literally in your hands. And I found it quite effective. We actually did a healing for a man at Omega Institute when the book debuted. There was a young man who said his father was in a coma in Indiana, and he was asking us to send some energy. And we did. There was 91 of us, and we all sent energy for about 5 minutes. And a couple days later, his father came out of the coma. And they said that the people at the hospital were referring to him as the miracle man. Now, I'm not going to say that that's going to happen every time somebody uses this kind of energy, because I think there's all kinds of factors at play in that kind of situation. But certainly, the ability for us to send some healing light to that individual in that point in time, I think, was very appropriate and had a profound reaction.
Grounding just before the exercise, how do you keep grounded with all that? Because sometimes we sense in spiritual people or healers there's a bit of floatiness and not being really here on earth in the real world. Sometimes it's a sense, and some other people are just too grounded and not, elevating. Right. So do you have a recommendation for people that feel just a little bit floaty?
Right. So for me, with this energy in particular, I find that unlike some of the other modalities I've studied, it actually keeps me very much on this plane of reality, and I feel very connected to my body, to everything that may be around me physically. So it almost has the opposite effect than other modalities that I've studied. So I don't feel so much floaty or out of my head when using this. I will sometimes feel it in a very non-verbal space, but it's not like I'm sort of out in the ether somewhere. I'm very here and present, but just not necessarily desiring to talk, just accessing that more nonverbal part of the brain. So this energy seems to almost design to really bring person not only onto a very earthy space, but also really into the now, very into the moment. where the now is just really very present in your consciousness.
And that's all there is, really.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's get into the technique, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. So I would just invite anybody who wants to receive this. I'll just send it now.
So there's an activation first, an empowerment activation. So that means that then people can we can all do this technique and then receive.
Yeah. So sometimes I describe it like a download from a computer. So it's like an energetic software, and then once you have it in your system, then you can access it anytime you want from the moment forward that it's activated.
Okay, so you're going to do the empowerment?
I'm going to do the empowerment. It'll really just take a short
We close our eyes?
Yeah, if you want to close your eyes, and then I'm just going to invite my higher self. I'm going to say a short invocation, and that will send it out to anybody who's watching this video. So by the power of the golden light within, by the power of the sacred breath, I manifest this truth. I now will my higher self to empower everybody who's watching this video to light of the eternal one energy. With the assistance of all angels and beings of light, I manifest this now, so be it. So that that energy goes out from my higher self out to anybody who's watching this, and usually takes what feels like a split second to kind of download into everybody's energy system. And then from there, it's a very simple technique where you would just literally just place your hands on your head and just simply intend or imagine that this light that we call light of the eternal one is flowing down from the heavens like a sparkly waterfall of light, down through your hands, filling up your skull with this light, literally bathing each cell of your brain with this light. And it really doesn't take very long, usually less than 5 minutes for the whole treatment. And as your brain and skull begin to fill with this light, there may be a certain point where you might feel or sense or even just imagine. For me, I tend to feel it as a sense of pressure in my hands, but a sense that the skull is full. And once you begin to sense that, you just simply shift your intention and intend that the light begin flowing down the spine, because it's working primarily on the brain and nervous system. And then again, you hold that for just another minute or two. And again, there'll be a certain point where you sense or feel or even just imagine that your spine is completely filled with this light. And then once the brain and spine are full, then you just let your hands come back down and allow yourself to be in the effect of the energy, which for me, again, often takes me into sort of a nonverbal space, which can sometimes make it challenging to speak when I'm teaching this, but just a place of deep, deep inner peace and deep calm. And so the recommendation that I have is for anyone who has this empowerment to really just do it once a day for a period of time. 40 days is what I recommend in the book, but just think of it like taking a vitamin. You take a vitamin once, you may or may not notice the effect, but if you take it every day and then notice over time how is it impacting your life. So for me, this work really allows you to access a space of deep inner peace, and in allowing that peace to come forth, it sort of starts to emanate throughout your life. One thing I want to mention too that I mentioned in the book is that my sense is that this light actually goes back to the ancient Essenes, who were a mystical sect of Judaism, sort of before and after the time of Christ. And there's a very interesting story around that where I had a healer who I was working with, and this information came through. And it was once that information came through, which was actually several years after the book was written, that the book finally moved forward and became published. So again, it just brings through this really peaceful, nice place of stillness in the mind. If one was to send the energy, it's a very simple, similar technique. You just simply bring your hands together like this, and just imagine that whoever or whatever it is that you're sending the energy to is in your hands. So like a little miniature doll of the person, if it's a person. You can also use this technique to send energy into your day, just imagining that you're holding your day. Or if you want to have, like, say there's a situation at work that you need some assistance with, you just imagine you're holding that situation. So again, it's just extremely, extremely simple and very user-friendly. So that's why we called it energy healing for everyone.
Yeah, accessible and practical, and I think that's where we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is there something else that we need to know? I mean, I know that you speak also of self-assessments. right?
Yeah, I think it's important always to be kind of journaling when you're doing this kind of work. You mentioned earlier about how some people when they're doing a lot of energy work can get a little ungrounded, and even though I find this work tends to be very grounding, I still think to even ground it more by writing about your own reflections, your own feelings, the things that it may elicit in you as you do this. And then you can go back and kind of see that thread of consciousness and the shifts that have occurred through time. So I always recommend that people get a journal and just write, even if it's just a few sentences each day after they do the self-treatment. And again, the self-treatment takes 5 minutes or less, so just spend another minute or two writing about the place that it brings you into your consciousness. And then you just start to notice it more, and it really starts to ground that aspect of your consciousness into your daily life.
It's interesting how with Reiki there's all those symbols and all those modules, and here it's really simple. And I think we're simplifying a lot right now. Huh?
Yeah. Sometimes I think of it, like in the world of computers, like many years ago, I used to have an IBM ThinkPad, and nothing wrong with that, but it was in 1995, and it was complex and hard for me to learn, and now I've, got sort of a more updated Apple version that's just really easy and simple, and so I think of it in that way.
What is your background? What were you doing when you were using the little ThinkPad?
Oh, I was traveling in Bali actually and doing some writing. It was a computer that I bought from a healer, and it just was easy for me to travel with. So
you've always been doing this. It's not like there was a huge career radical change in your life.
Well, there was a change in the early 1990s is when I got into energy healing after I had a very challenging experience at the NYU Dental Center, where a student was very rough with my mouth, and I was in a lot of pain, and I had to happen to have the good luck of having a roommate who happened to be a Reiki practitioner. I didn't really know what Reiki was at that point, but when he saw me come home, he immediately offered me a Reiki treatment, and from that moment forward, I wanted to know more, because it felt like it opened something in me that felt like connected to the divine, connected to the sense of grace that just allowed me to move through the suffering. It's not that the suffering went away 100%, but it allowed me to move through it in a way that felt very compassionate in this sense of knowing I was going to be okay. So yeah, it was then in the early 1990s that I just kind of dove headfirst in. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are diving right now. I love it. The crystal, the crystal here. Tell us about that, because I think a lot of co-creators watching this video want to hear more. I want to hear more.
Okay, yeah. So there's a different technique from my previous book, which is called New Reiki Software for Divine Living, and in that book it explores something that I call the Reiki crystal. Which is an energetic crystal that one can receive through the book that sits in front of a person's heart chakra, and it allows a person to send Reiki simply through communicating directly with the crystal, whether you're doing that with your thoughts or literally speaking to it. You can then send energy to anyone or to yourself, or I have often used it to send to large groups of people when I'm doing group healing. And it's so incredibly easy and effective. Yeah.
How do you know that crystal is really there?
Well, for me, energetically, I feel it, and I'm very energetically sensitive. But also, for me, I guess the real or the biggest confirmation is when I do group healings, which I do quite often at a lot of yoga studios, mostly, as well as at Omega Institute. And when you see a room of 30 or 40 people who are just suddenly out and snoring in the middle of the day, the consistency of that experience, as well as the feedback that I get from people, leads me not to believe, but to know that it's real.
Because sometimes it's it's so intangible and we cannot see it with our eyes. We can sense it. So I think it's important that we teach and we talk more about the experience of it, or how do we know this is real for us? Because this is there's so much access to so many things beyond the material.
Yeah, and a way one can experience it too. I have a lot of audio healings on SoundCloud.com. And if you just go to SoundCloud and my name, Brett Bevell, there's both the Light of the Eternal One energy healing that one can receive through there, as well as some of these different Reiki techniques. And you just listen to the audio, and then you can experience it for yourself.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Brett.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you for this interview. Thank you for this practice. Can we call it practice?
Yeah.
Something we do daily.
Yeah, please do.
In the middle of the day, why not? Thank you so much. Sending you much love and light from beautiful New York City. It's now time for me to fly back home to France. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much love. Big kiss. Bye.